We're live, doing the Loki thing one last time. That's it.
That is correct. It is my turn to do a plot synopsis for this episode. And I'm winging it a little bit here, but also there was a lot of dialogue to condense. So let's do this together.
I think. Wait, hold on. Sorry. Before you do that, I think you keep
Yeah.
hitting your microphone or something. I don't know.
Yes, I do. We'll try and not do that.
Oh, that was unpleasant. Anyway, continue.
I forget that I usually actually set up my microphone, like the actual mic, and only use this for headphones. I don't know why I completely forgot that today, but I will try not to move.
Great plan.
It's in that kind of week. Okay. We start the episode with a very cool addition to the Marvel title card, in which we hear a bunch of classic lines from the Avengers, and that takes us into the start of the episode and into other classic lines from lesser known Avengers like Nelson Mandela and Maya Angelou, but also a line from Vision. Nelson Mandela, Vision. Yeah.
Same.
Yes, it's all of these lines are just kind of leaking out of the timeline graphics. And so we zoom in on that into like the Citadel at the end of time. So Sylvie needs a moment before heading in because she's been working toward this for so long. She needs to collect herself, but the doors open by themselves. And so they go in and find none other than Miss Minutes. The real, I think, baddie in this whole thing. And Miss Minutes is like, howdy, y'all. Do I have an offer for you? She says that he, the proverbial man behind the curtain, whom she calls He Who Remains, has found a way to keep both versions of Loki in a single timeline. And she, the guy in charge, can even make it so that Loki wins in New York and against the Avengers, and he defeats Thanos, and he gets an Infinity Gauntlet. So basically everything Loki has ever wanted. But Loki has changed. And so he passes on the very, tempting offer, and Miss Minutes is like, whatever, and she flashes out. Meanwhile, Renslayer is going through some files, and Miss Minutes shows up there and is there to deliver some files, but they're not the ones that Renslayer requested. But Miss Minutes says that these are the files that he thinks she should have. We jump back to the Citadel, and Sylvie and Loki go deeper until they find Jonathan Majors, the man we know has been cast as Kang the Conqueror. They never say that name. He calls himself the Conqueror in this, but I'm going to call him Kang throughout this. The Lokis are weirded out by the fact that after all this, what they find is just like a man. And Sylvie thinks that this will make it easier to kill him, but when she lunges at him, he time hops out and reappears. So no killing right now, time for chats. Mobius finds a Renslayer back at the TVA, and they have a confrontation about the fact that she tried to kill her own bestie. And she's like, I got to do it for the mission. And she tries to call for backup, but Mobius says that's not going to work out. And we see he shows her a pen that we have seen before that is one of her artifacts. We got a lingering close-up of this pen a few episodes ago. And basically they tracked down Renslayer before she was Renslayer. She worked at a school in Ohio, and Agent B-15 has led a bunch of hunters there. And at the moment when one of the hunters confronts her and is, going to prune her or whatever, she's like, wait. And that's when Renslayer walks in. And so B-15 kind of has his attention now. So back at the Citadel, Sylvie is still trying the lunging at Kang to kill him approach, but he keeps time hopping away from her. So he figures it's time for some explanation. She can't kill him because he knows everything that's going to happen, which he proves by pulling out their cosmic scripts and being like, see, I know everything. And Kang says that they think that they have have found him, like they won, they got to this place. But the truth is that he let them get here. He paved the way for them to get here. And then he explains a little bit more about himself. Basically, in the 31st century, I think he says he basically figured out about the multiverse. And so he starts figuring out how to do travel between the multiverse, and so do other versions of him at the same time. And so they all meet and they're like, oh my God, we're awesome. Very self-congratulatory. They start like sharing information and knowledge, but not like some versions of him are not so great and they want to like rule and conquer. So this is what starts the multiverse war. So Kang's point is basically like, you want to kill me, and I get it because I have been taking people's free will away. However, I am not the worst version of me. And if you kill me, worse versions of me are going to come back. And this whole multiverse war will start again. So he basically says, here are your two options. You kill me and deal with the worst versions of me, or you take over. Like, I want to retire from the conqueror life. Like, I'm old and I'm done.
I've run the scenarios and I picked you two.
Yes. He's like, I was looking for a replacement. Turns out it was two people who are the same versions, like different versions of one person. Who knew? And I'd like to retire and hand off the company to you guys. So what do you say? Do you want to be the cosmic time cops? And still, like, at this point, we do jump back to the TVA, and Renslayer and Mobius are still having kind of like a showdown. And Mobius is like, I'm going to prune you if I have to. And Renslayer just really punches him easily. And it was like, okay, Mobius, why are you so bad at fighting? And why did you think you have a chance? But Renslayer just kind of time hops away, and she says that she's going to go out there looking for free will. So that's that. And then back at the Citadel, Sylvie still wants to go with the lunging and killing Kang plan, but Loki stops her and is like, let's think about this. Like, this is a big decision. If we kill him and there are worse versions of him, like what will this mean? Like, let's just take a second. And Sylvie automatically is like, oh, you just want the throne. I can't trust you. Like, I knew this was going to happen. And Loki's like, no, I just want us to think before we take a decision. But Sylvie's not about the thinking, you know, she's ready for the killing. So she kind of pauses for a moment to mislead him, and she kisses him to distract him. If you guys heard the groan from all the way from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that was me. Absolutely. I was like, oh no. And in distracting him, she also swipes Kang's time hopper thing. What is the thing called?
Tempad, but like his isn't even a tempad. No. It's the master tempad. It's like stylish looking. It's
like a watch. It's like some Rolex of tempads.
Yes.
So she swipes his Rolex and like shoves Loki back to the TVA. And then the whole time that this is happening, they're fighting, they're talking, they're kissing, and Kang is just back there like with his popcorn, like watching, like, because up to this point, he knew what was going to happen up to a certain point, but the script runs out. So after like their chats, he really didn't know which way this was going to go. So he's literally there watching this like we are. And after Sylvie sends Loki away, then she's like, okay, I'm going to kill you. And she does. And the last thing that Kang tells her is like, see you soon, seeing you again. Basically kind of confirming what he's already said, that this is kind of it is his version of Thanos, I am inevitable sort of thing. And then what happens? Loki is back at the TVA, and he has a moment of like feelings of like, oh no, like after all that, after my self-cessed she got rid of me. But then he like comes back to himself and is like, no, I have a mission. So he gets up and he starts running through the TVA looking for Mobius, presumably to like tell him what's happened. He finds Mobius and B-15, and he's like, listen, we found the Citadel at the end of time, like we failed, like some bad dudes are coming our way. And Mobius is like, calm down, you're an analyst, right? What's your name? And Loki's like, what the hell? And when he looks up and looks around at this TVA, there's a huge statue of Kang the Conqueror in here. And so he realizes, presumably, and we realize, that he's not back in his timeline. He's in some other timeline at the TVA, probably. And that is the end. We do get a little Loki will be back in season 2.
Yeah.
With nary a jet ski to be found.
Nary a jet ski. Yeah. Yes. Indeed.
Okay, well, that was my so I guess now I ask you, Nicole, did you like it?
I did. I think that it's important that there's 2 like asterisks on that. One is there were no fucking jet skis, and I'm mad about it. And number 2, that kiss, I'm also mad about that. Yes. However, in spite of those 2 facts, I mostly enjoyed this. Jonathan Majors is great. Like, I understand that, like, the difficulty of your task here in terms of doing a synopsis of what was just a lot of talking, but like, I don't know, like that, none of that dragged for me. I was riveted. I enjoyed every minute of his like needlessly long speech, just because I was like, I don't know, I was into that whole performance. I also think that like that introduction for this character is really interesting in the context of this show because of all of the like identity stuff that this show is doing, and like the way that you have like his whole thing is like, you know, my other selves like conquered and they were really bad, and so I'm the good one who's also a dictator. Like, yes. My idea of being the good one was still right. And so like you kind of also see like a bit of that same, like, you know, Loki's whole things, like, right, like also playing out there. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know. All of this was like, would not have guessed that this is where we were going, but not in a bad way. And I just, yeah, aside from the kiss that did not need to happen and the lack of jet skis, I liked this.
Yeah. It was fine. It was not my favorite episode of the season. And, it did a little bit drag for me, as much as I liked the performance as well. And I do agree. The idea that this is the best version of King is like frightening, which is the point, right? Like, you know, he's saying like there's worse out there. And we talk a lot about Marvel villains who have a point. And this one is a really neat version of that, because it's not necessarily that he has a point that like you believe in his mission, but it's like, okay, but if the alternatives are all worse, like, what do you do? Like, that is a valid question. And that's what Loki is saying to Sylvie. Like, hold on, let's think about this for a second. Like, if something really bad is coming, then we need to be prepared. We need to think about that. So I think that's really compelling. I enjoyed the performance, but I did think that it kind of dragged, especially for like a finale.
Yeah.
Like, he wants something with a little bit more punch in the pacing. And I literally, I don't know how long the episode was, but I took a break. I took a break. I was like, I gotta, take a break. And I came back and I kept watching. So there wasn't that, like, I don't know. I wasn't like edge of my seat, like, because it was
I was so just because I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. And like, and because it did genuinely, like, it feels plausible to me at this point that like yes, the show is like continuing to come back, but I was like, I don't know, like, what, like, maybe they get rid of main timeline Loki and now it's like, it's still like whatever, like there's a lot of things that you can do, like they have set it up to where fucking anybody could be coming back in season 2 as Loki of the show. So it was like, I don't know. I was genuinely like on the edge of my seat. So I understand what you're saying though about like the pacing.
It was a little draggy. Yeah, it was a little draggy. So I ultimately liked where it went, but I think it could have done a little bit more in terms, especially because we've had those like big action sequences or episodes that like balance the action with those like longer monologues better, and this one just didn't. So yeah, I don't know. B-, I don't know. I did also say though that there were like, I was like, okay, I started off like low. This won me over, and I said there were a few things that in this finale, if they happen, I would be pissed. And one was the kiss, and it happened. And I know it's like, okay, the kiss, or it's like, whatever, the kiss. But no, I literally said it would make me so mad. It would like ruin a lot for me. And they went there. The only thing that is like a little bit of like whatever is, no, never mind. I was going to say, like, Sylvie did it like kind of in a manipulative kind of way. But I don't know. It was still, no, thank you. Hard pass. And Loki betrayal. Yes, I said no Loki betrayal in my last one too. And I know it wasn't the Loki. I was like, that Loki didn't betray, but it was a Loki betrayal. And I was like, God dang it. I said no to 2 things.
Yeah, but Sylvie's betrayal hadn't been Sylvie's jam. That was not, I don't know, like her whole thing was vengeance, and that was it. That's what she did to the end.
She did a vengeance.
She did. That was the one she wouldn't let go of.
Yeah.
And that's, and like, that was also like, that was the last episode. Like that, the kind of, I thought random in the context of episode 5, the conversation between Renslayer and B15 felt a little, I don't know, just sort of tucked in there. But like the main thing there was B15 being like, vengeance is what drives her. Like that's the thing that she will pursue to the end. Yeah. I am really curious though about what the thing that he sent Renslayer after is going to be. But
yes,
I guess we'll have to wait till season 2.
There are a lot of ways, like you said, that, and we talked a little bit about this last episode, about how the multiverse just opens up so many storytelling possibilities. And it's like really exciting. Like even putting Loki in a new timeline, like immediately just open up this whole other story. So it's like very, very cool, like all of the unknown pieces of this. But I think what's interesting about this episode is that it did a few things that were highly expected. Like, Renslayer just kind of vengeance till the end, like super, she followed a very straight narrative path, which is interesting kind of in the grander scheme of like what this is exploring. But then you also have this whole thing with Kang, which makes me laugh so freaking much, especially after WandaVision and all of like the theories and Mephisto, and that didn't happen. And there were a bunch of theories about like, and even in WandaVision, like the X-Men stuff and Quicksilver, and then there was stuff in Cap's friends too that people were, and it was like, no, none of it. And then this one, people were like, oh, it's Kang, and they were like, no, it'll never be Kang, it can't be Kang. And then the show's like, it's Kang.
It's Kang. It was Kang.
So, you guys got this one. So it's really interesting to me the way that they did some things that were just highly expected, and I was like, oh, okay, you took a different route here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but I like it being Kang, like that. It wasn't, I mean, it was expected to, like, I don't know, for like comics people, the degree to which I expected it was that it was the thing that people were saying, I don't fucking know anything about this character outside of my Marvel investment is MCU like specific, right? So like it's Kang was mostly just other people, and then like he's cast, whatever, like that. And so which I say mostly to in that, like, it wasn't like a it didn't feel like it was a thing that they had been like telegraphing so hard that it was like,
no, it wasn't unsatisfying.
Yes, that's what yeah,
and again, in a series that literally you can have so many different versions of people and go all of these different ways, the fact that it, in some instances, it just did what it kind of promised to do, I was like, an interesting choice. Yes. I would have liked for Sylvie's like plot to not have, I don't know, I just wanted her to be a little bit, that moment where it was just like vengeance and that's it. I would have liked it to be a little bit more complex, but I guess this was a finale for this season, but there's more of this story. And it almost felt like very network TV-y in that sense, like the finale of it all, the way that it like left on a cliffhanger was like, see you next season, which is not a sense or feeling that we've gotten with the other MCU shows. I don't think those felt like long movies.
Yes.
And this felt like a TV show finale.
Yes.
So I had to like check myself and be like, okay, her story's still going, because I was kind of unsatisfied with that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is though, like, I don't know, that to me, I mean, like, yes, her story is still going, but also like she was not having an identity journey on this
No.
show. Like that was not her arc here. That was his arc. And like, yes. And like, he did have it. Right. And like that, all like through to the end. And like, I think that I don't know, like, and I think that like his whole, his little bit at the end there about like, you can't trust and I can't be trusted. And like, was like threading the thing between their two distinct like journeys that they were having this season. But like, I don't know, she was not going on this whole like learning about who I am and like who I would like to be. Like, she was not, there was no introspection. Her journey was never introspective in any way whatsoever. She had a mission that was vengeance, and like she had obstacles in the way of her vengeance mission, but nothing until that moment, like until Loki begging her not to. That was the first moment in the entire season that she had been presented with, maybe don't do vengeance, like,
right.
So yeah, I just that is like, to me it makes sense, like that's a longer running thing. This is what has been fueling her. So, I mean, she was a little kid when she was plucked out of her timeline, and so we're talking about decades of living her life motivated by vengeance. I think it would have been unsatisfying to have that like undone in a scene anyway.
Yeah. So there's some talk in the chat. So, like, for instance, Miriam was saying that a friend felt that introducing King in the last episode was like a little weird for somebody who doesn't know about the comic books, doesn't know about King, which is like basically me, except for I read things that like, and so other people were, like you said, were like, oh, it's King. And I was like, cool, it's King. That is also the extent of my knowledge. But this kind of goes back into what I'm saying about this feeling more like a TV season thing, because it is not the end of the movie and you're getting an introduction of a character. It's just the end of chapter 1, basically.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know that it would feel weird, because even though we're just meeting this person, the presence of the man behind the curtain, even when we thought it was the timekeepers, is something that is critical to the show. So if you're building to this moment of figuring out who this person is, so yes, you're just meeting him, but that was kind of the point all along, is who's behind the cosmic time cops, and you meet this man. So I thought that was, from that aspect, I didn't think that was like unsatisfying. I think it would have been unsatisfying to meet nobody at this point.
Right. Well, and yeah, and that's the thing, like, even in a version of that relied on, like, I think the other sort of theory that was being kicked around in the chat is like, it's another, like, a version of Loki or whatever. And like, that's the way that you go if this were like the other shows where it was meant to be just a long movie, and you want to end it. Like, if this is an ending, then yes, by all means, you need to tie it back into everything that's been happening. But like, yeah, this is not that. there is explicitly more story.
Yeah, and that's to Nick's point. They don't ever say his name in this. They kind of work around it. He is called He Who Remains. He says himself, I've been known, He Who Reigns, and then I've been known by many names, and he says Conqueror, but not his full name. So again, it is one of those things that, like, if you know, but if you don't, like, there's like a huge gap there, like, between. It didn't explicitly tell us many things where you can kind of fill in the blanks. So you either know or you don't, kind of thing.
And it's interesting too, because of the kind of going back to like the thing about, multiverse and many opportunities. One of the things that like we've talked about a few times over the course of our many live streams now this year, but is like all of the things that people wanted to have happen at like on the TV shows that just were never going to happen on the TV shows, because anything that they introduce on the shows has to be reintroduced in a movie like later. And in this way that like the it is not surprising that we didn't end up getting all, a lot of the things that people were sort of expecting to get. The thing about this that's also interesting to me is that like any reintroduction of this character won't necessarily feel like retreading the same ground, just because of everything that we're saying about the way that he is introduced here. So I don't know, that is also interesting to me in terms of where it's going.
Yes, because even you've got to think that, I don't know, in the reintroduction, there's a possibility that we will see a version of Kang that is not this version of Kang. So like that is a possibility, and that is also such a smart way to put something in the TV shows that can easily be reintroduced into the movies. So again, that is just like how smart the multiverse is, like as a concept, and how smart Loki is, to reintroduce us to a version of this character. And take it from a naysayer. Like, I think this has been like the best way to like get us back on board with the characters, to say, okay, this is kind of the character, but a version of it. Like, what are some of the possibilities if he kind of went through this like huge identity journey of seeing what his future is, of coming into contact with different versions of himself, and like seeing a mirror in that way and being like, oh, this is who I am. Like, oh no, like who would you end up with at the end? And what you end up with is like a Loki who didn't betray, who is like giving speeches about trusting, who like has his almost glorious purpose, which you see in his face in that last scene where he's like, okay, Sylvie betrayed me, but there's work to do. Like, bad people are coming. Like the timeline has splintered. Like, let's get to it. So I think in that moment, that was really neat too, to see him like get up and like start to figure out like what comes next.
Yeah. Are you excited about the second season?
I am, especially because I don't know where we're going. I don't know like what. This was cliffhangery, but not in a way where I'm like, oh, okay, next season, here's what we're gonna do. No idea what we're gonna do in season 2.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that. In general, yes, also was really sad. Like that, It upset me when Mobius didn't recognize. They hugged. They were friends. Now.
Okay. Also, though, because in that moment, like he's like, my girl betrayed me, and then it's like, wait, I have a boy. He's like, it's okay, me and Mobius, and then he gets there. Buddy. And his buddy doesn't remember him. So it was like 2 heartbreaks back to back.
It was rough.
Rough Loki.
Yes.
Yes. Of all of the like cliffhangery things, I felt a little like disappointed is not the right word. I was just like, like, because we don't see much more of Mobius, like, and his story here. He gets those 2 scenes with Renslayer, which again, I think those 2 scenes could have been collapsed into one.
That should have just been one.
It was so much nothing, and probably those were even worse, like harder hits to the pacing than what we were seeing Kang do, because again, that performance was actually compelling, where the Mobius and Renslayer stuff was kind of like, okay. But I was a little bummed that we don't see him get much further than when we saw him last, because he has been such a bright spot of this show, and the character has been such a bright spot. So I was hoping we got a little bit more of him, but we don't.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, most of all, I'm sad that he didn't get to ride a jet ski.
I know. Not yet. That's like series finale.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Oh,
we were thinking. So yeah, I know. We were thinking season finale.
Too small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Where do you think we've gone a little bit like back and forth on Renslayer? Like at first we were like on the character, but also thinking if she's like bad or good, if she knew more than she was like letting on, which we know now she probably doesn't. So where do you think she's going in season 2? Like bad or good? Like what is her journey exactly?
I don't know. I think I feel like there are two like I have two, I don't know, strong like reads or whatever on this Kang, and like what, like trying to, like what do I think he would have like sent her off to. There is the, I don't know, the like a version of it is that this guy wanted to be, was like trying to prevent it, and so this was like a way of, here's the information that you need to know to like to go be, I don't know, another, this is like an additional, safety or whatever in my plan, I guess. Once he knew the Lokis were coming, and so it's like, here's the other thing that you can do. The thing that feels more likely to me though, is this, that I think I because I don't honestly, I don't fully buy the his understanding of himself as being like trying to, I don't know, protect, because even in that, like even in his way of trying to convince the Lokis to take over for him, he does all these little things that are like, that make their fight feel like deeply inevitable. And like he's not, I don't know, like he makes a point of calling Sylvie Loki, which he knows annoys her, and he does all these little things that are very much like he was excited to see this thing that he didn't know, to like to cross the threshold of everything that he knows and to just sort of see what would happen. And so it seems most likely to me that like the end result of that is, okay, listen, go find a me, go find some version of me, and go create some other kind of chaos is sort of what I'm expecting. But okay. I don't know.
To the end, he does keep calling her Loki, and he's the one who starts the whole thing about like talking about trust. Like,
yes,
you can't trust him or whatnot, or you don't know how to trust. Is like his whole thing. So that's really interesting. But hearing you talk about this makes me think that even though he doesn't know how this is going to end, he strongly anticipated the fact that he was going to die at this moment, because he sent that information to Renslayer way early. He sent it before. Whatever mission he's sending her on is probably with the understanding not that the Lokis are going to take over the TVA, but that the multiverse war is coming, other versions of himself are coming. So it makes like the way that he's manipulating them throughout that whole conversation seem like even more like, I see what you are doing here.
Yes. So I don't know. What do you, is that's what is what's your theory? What's your expectation for Renslayer?
Yes, I think that she will. I like the idea of her like teaming up with a Kang variant. I think especially because she's kind of like ripe ground. She doesn't have to be convinced very much of this, of like the idea that the sacred timeline is the right thing to do. She's already kind of there, and I think that in seeing like what the branch timeline does and seeing the Kang variants, if she meets a Kang who's like, no, we need to conquer, we need to put this back together, she'll be like, yes. Right. That will be an easy sell for her.
I also love this, her being a principal. I just like, there was something about again, the show is all about identity and whatnot, but like the idea, the fact that the head time cop that her pre-variant identity was principal. Incredible. I love it.
What else? Who haven't we talked about?
I don't know.
Who did we see?
B-15. She didn't really do much. She was just sort of there.
Yeah.
Mostly just establishing herself as a recurring character on the TV show Loki. That's
Remember me?
yeah. Her scenes in episodes 5 and 6 were mostly, I think, that where you're a character on this show, you go here. So there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of theories in the chat. She's the actual conqueror. Some sort of love theme in Doctor Strange, and Kang, Renslayer, and Wanda and Vision, and Doctor Strange has to play mediator. Oh, interesting. Oh, how do we feel about the overall Marvel series experiment post Daredevil, Punisher, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., etc.?
I love this. I have been absolutely I love this format for the storytelling that it is doing. I love the ability it has given them to tell longer form stories, even though I think that was a little bit of a failure in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was an amazing success in WandaVision. And even for the more mixed experience I had here, again, it has given us so much time to delve deeply into a character, which is something that we just do not have the ability to do in these movies, especially at this point where we have a lot of ensemble casts, right? And you're having to dedicate so little time to each of all of the moving parts. So I think this was so smart. I love TV though, also TV is my favorite format. So the fact that I get to have this thing that I love, this universe that I love now come to TV has been absolutely wonderful. And I love also that this has been water cooler TV, that this is moment in the moment TV where people are talking about this, that we're all watching it together, that there is fan theorizing, that after every episode I know that I can go look up stuff of what people are saying and videos. I love that kind of TV consumption. So the entire thing has been really, and honestly at this point Marvel could say they're making a TV show about anything and I would be okay, sign me up.
Catch us here every Friday at 8 Eastern. Yes to all of that. Yeah, the water cooler thing, having that back again, it was it's the everything that I the best part of watching Game of Thrones was being able to be on Twitter with everybody and have that whole sort of communal experience was really, really cool. And also to your point about telling longer form stories, I don't think you could tell this story effectively in a movie. This whole thing about this identity journey that they sent Loki on over the course of this show, you could not cram that into 2 hours. It wouldn't work. It requires a lot of time for him to sit in all of the different, whatever iterations of this. I also am really loving this. Even though it meant that I watched all 6 hours of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I still, in general, I still broadly love the experiment. To me, though, there's the Nick bringing up all of so post Daredevil, Punisher, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., etc. Having seen all of the other shit too, the thing that I think will be really interesting will be to come back to the second season of this show and see how it sits after some movies have happened. I think that the fact that we are going multiverse means that it'll be hard for them to really fuck it up in the way that I think things were shitty with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that dynamic. I think I have yelled about this all over the place. To summarize, though, the way in which Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had to react to the MCU, but the MCU never had to react to S.H.I.E.L.D. It was just this one way thing, and it was just I don't know. It was frustrating. S.H.I.E.L.D., honestly, to this thing about multiverses, the show got part of when the show got really good was it was basically that they start messing with time and universes and stuff, and so it was their way to sort of get out of having to, be guided by what was happening in like the rest of the MCU. But anyway, all of that to say that I'm not worried about it going that route, but that's my big I don't know, like that's the big wait and see for me is how all of this works, like how much how well it plays with the movies, I guess.
Yeah. I'm hopeful because the MCU has been so fantastic about continuity and about like pulling in its different parts and like telling us really satisfying individual stories in this larger arc. And I think that this is like the best part of this experiment is having these two things interact with each other. And so and we've seen the TV portion of this. And now, we know that some movies are coming out and will definitely come out before we see season 2 of Loki. So like, okay, what does that mean? Like, and how does that inform the story that they're going to tell? If at all, because they, like you said, they might just say, no, this is a different universe. Okay.
I mean, but I guess like there are ways that you do that though, without feeling, you can have it be informed, but without needing to like really be dictated, like informed by, but not dictated by, like the two things when you can have, when you have the multiverse situation going on, because you can have sort of like, oh, okay, so we know like Kang is a character, right? But like Loki can continue to play with versions of Kang that are not in the movies, and the movies can play with versions of Kang that are not in Loki, right? And so that there's not like, that you can have these things happening in tandem in ways that they are sort of like in like a loose dialogue with one another, but like not necessary, like that you could skip pieces of it and still track everything. So that is my expectation / hope for what they're gonna do, but we shall see.
Yes, I do. I love that the 3 outings that we've seen so far, which is kind of what I was saying before, but to like, dig a little deeper there. It's like all very character focused, and I think that part of the reason that Falcon didn't work is that it kind of lost the thread of that plot entirely, and it didn't have Sam or even Sam and Bucky as really like the stars of that show. It introduced so many additional elements that we lost completely the story was trying to tell about this man taking up a mantle, and that is like a really compelling story, especially with all of the different pieces, but it just kind of lost that. But in WandaVision, we see this being about Wanda's like grief and trauma and like very much about her and her family. And then here we see this about Loki's identity, like crisis, and trying to figure out, kind of who he is in this whole thing. So I love that these are the kinds of stories that they're focusing in on, because it's our jam.
Right. Yes. Yeah. TV, our jam. And then in the space of TV, they're like, okay, we're going to tell the stories that you really want to see. Incredible. I love it. Some of this still feels to me like hand waving a fix for them, letting Kat break their timeline without consequences or even acknowledgement, with the distraction of, but Peggy got her dance. I mean, the timeline, I think I to me, like after Endgame, this is correct. This is like the thing that you have to do is now say, yeah, man, time. we're doing crazy shit with time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but and they did set it up in a way, not only with like the time travel, but you have that part with the Ancient One, where she explains like the branching of the timelines in a graphic that looks so much like everything they've been showing us in the TVA. So as much as like this feels like hand waving, I mean, they were at least seeding it early enough where they were like, we know that we're like messing with time, we're creating branched realities. Like, I don't know if it was always like, I'm assuming that was their grand plan, like coming through, but
the thing I was about to say, I don't know that seeding feels I would mostly, this is kind of going back to something that Nick said when we were at some point in one of the podcasts that we did about the MCU, but that he brought up that the ways in which threads get followed across the MCU often have this way of making the filmmakers seem like they're doing more planning than they were actually doing, when what is probably happening more often than not is just being really, really careful about what the existing pieces are before you take the next step. And so saying, if you're going to do this sort of time thing, then like, okay, here is how this was presented and laid out in Endgame, and then like borrowing that forward, so that to me it feels, or I don't know, my assumption is that it's less seeding than just, being careful and thoughtful about how they utilize the tools in the sandbox.
The thing that felt the most hand-wavy to me was actually the line that it was like, well, the Avengers time travel, and they're like, well, that's allowed. And it was just kind of like, oh, okay. Like
that I loved, though, because in the context of that first episode where like the whole thing was like this welcome to this bureaucracy that makes no sense. This place where you are is completely nonsensical, and also setting up this whole thing of just like, you are a villain. That's the role that you play. And like, that's the thing that we're like here to sort of, question and interrogate. And like, what if you chose to not be that person? And yeah, so
in the context of the show, it worked. But in terms of like explaining kind of what we're talking about here, sort of like, how this fits in the larger story, like the, why the Avengers. But this is the whole thing with the sacred timeline. Like, why this timeline?
It's just the one he picked. He just picked this one. He just said, this is the one. I don't know. This is the one I'm going to protect. So, yeah.
Yes.
Nonsensicalness makes more sense after you meet that version of Kang. It's weird, and so is he. I think that's also like a big part of why I was totally fine with the show's decision to include an extended villain monologue in its finale. But that there was like just the energy that he had in all of that was just. I don't know. I was delighted.
Hearing him talk about like what he's been doing through the TVA or whatnot made the TVA make so much more sense, because it really does seem like some guy at the end of the world's idea of what a bureaucracy, like what it even, like, I'm going to make a really official company. And this is like what he made. Like, yes.
There was no HR consult on,
nope.
on the creation of the TVA. So, yes. Yeah, I think maybe this is just the one that he was in. So he was like, I'll hang out and this one, and this is the one that produced me, the one good Kang, as I've decided that I am. So I guess this is the right timeline.
Yes. Any other timeline would have worse versions of Kang, so they cannot exist.
They can't exist.
And in this version, the Avengers time travel. So here we are.
I came along like 100 years later. That had already happened. Like, that just is what it is. So, yes. Yeah. I also, though, like, I don't understand how other things got so far being different before they got pruned, if this is the one, but like it's like the more you just don't think about it, I guess. It's really the thing.
Yeah, Nick said earlier too that this is anything with time travel is always going to be this, that like you cannot think about it too deeply because it's time travel. So like I still, of all of the many questions that we have, one of like the biggest one in my mind is, why did they prune Sylvie as a child and not when she was born? If it's
Right.
like a female version of Loki, why weren't they immediately like, oh, that's not supposed to happen? But if that wasn't the thing that was like the Nexus event, then what is like, what about her was like the thing? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess possibly the thing is, because like his whole bit speech or whatever was that like I paved the way for you to wind up here. So like, the thing was creating this like vengeance bound version of Loki and letting her whatever apocalypse hop and stuff to become this. Like I don't know, like that is
it feels
yeah. It's the fact that we like got that in the finale, this sort of like revelation that Kang was paving the way for them to arrive there in that way, in that moment, makes me a little bit concerned that we're never going to get Sylvie's actual Nexus event. I'm going to be really upset. That's a thing that I demand of future seasons, is I want to know what her actual Nexus event was.
Yeah. I do too. But I think that it not hearing you say it, it's very likely that maybe it wasn't a Nexus event, but like more like Kang being like, okay, this is the proper moment for me to rip a child away from her home so that she can be on a vengeance filled quest and eventually come to me. Which,
yeah, I don't love that. I don't love that. So I don't know. Hopefully that's a thing. That is a thing that I want out of future seasons. I want Mobius on a jet ski. I want Sylvie's Nexus event. I want Sylvie to get to learn her Nexus event. She deserves to know her Nexus event. And I want Marvel to actually fucking do something, to not keep telling me, oh, look, here's our gender fluid bisexual character in words. I do something. That's what I those are my demands of future
demand list.
Loki.
All I had on my demand list was don't kiss. We couldn't even get there. So
yeah, 2 for 3. I feel like maybe I can go. But that third one, I feel like is that was when I crossed the line on my list of demands, past the point of what Marvel's willing to do. Yeah.
Nick says he doesn't think we're going to see Sylvie again.
Oh.
Or he wouldn't be surprised if we never see Sylvie
Interesting.
Again.
Interesting.
I think we do.
Maybe. Yeah, she was too significant of a character of this. That was and yet. Whenever your demand list is don't kiss, you're going to be, if
you have the foresight to put don't kiss on a demand list, it's already a foregone conclusion.
It's already a foregone conclusion. That's correct. That one's already been decided.
It's wishful thinking, not a demand list.
That is you preemptively making your list of complaints about the thing. That's basically what's happening there. Yeah, I don't know. I would be surprised if we never see Sylvie again, personally. I mean, maybe. Again, though, to my point earlier, like they can do literally anything in terms of versions of Loki at this point. And like, I mean, I say that the way that this ended, Tom Hiddleston Loki has to, like, they have to pick that back up, like from that moment at the end of this, where he comes back and like that Mobius, that B-15, that Loki, like that bit has to sort of be revisited. But beyond that, I don't know. I have no idea. So
Sylvie's story feels really undone to me, particularly as somebody who cares about Sylvie's story. But to Nick's point, if they just left it at she got her vengeance and she set in motion something really, really bad, that could be the end of a story, right? And you're just kind of like, she did it. Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there still is more to see there.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I do too. Yeah, I mean, especially because you have this character whose whole journey was this her vengeance. She wanted her vengeance. She got her vengeance, and then like to something that we have already discussed on tonight, but like that feels like now like that's the beginning of a new sort of journey of like the fallout, right? She got her vengeance, and like this is her, like as main timeline, main character Loki had his whole had his whatever, like his things that his bad things that he had done that he has to sort of like process and deal with and whatever. Like to me, this feels like such a good jumping off point for like the future of this character to sort of go from there and be like, okay, you got your vengeance and you broke the world.
Yeah. And Miriam pointed out that she's got the Rolex tempad too. So I mean, she's going places. She's going places.
That's yes. She's got the girl with the Rolex tempad is she can't, come on. There's no way that she's done, that we've seen the last of her. I mean, yes, to be clear, all of these things are just feelings. Yes. Everything we're saying is just a feeling.
There's no evidence, Nick. But yes, you are correct. There was something very final feeling about the end of her story because it built to that vengeance done sort of place. Mm-hmm. I think that there's potential for more, but also, yes, they could leave it here. We could not see her for a season or two or whatever, and then she show up somewhere, either doing something or like she could stay in the Citadel and just be like, that wasn't what I thought it would be. I'm just going to stay here for like any of these possibilities.
Yeah. All of them, all of this tracks. Yep.
Sure. Her and what's the name of the smoke dog? Could be
Eliath.
Eliath can come besties and just hang out at the Citadel.
A lot of options. It is one of the exciting things about this show is that they have set us up in this moment of they can truly do anything, and I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. that checks out. I mean,
it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
But it doesn't make nothing makes sense, but like in that way, it makes sense. So.
And Miss Minutes will also come visit her and Eliath and be like, "Hey, honey, what you up to?"
Miss Minutes, to the point from your synopsis, is the real villain here. Yeah, evil, big evil, like big evil. I'm getting very evil vibes on Miss Minutes. So. Marvel found a way to be like, plot holes don't exist anymore. They're just different branches. It's incredible.
It's incredible. Yes.
What a power move. Yeah. I love it. Yes. Well, anything else? Any other last thoughts? We have no, when's the next thing? Hawkeye? Is that next?
No
What's
idea.
The next thing?
I don't know.
I said, when's the next thing? But then I was like, actually, what is really the first?
If anybody in the chat is more informed than we are, I just had in my head Loki, Black Widow, which is not for this thing, but it's like the next Marvel thing. But whenever it is, or whatever it is, we'll be back.
We'll be here.
We will be here.
I just found a thing. All 13 Marvel TV shows releasing after Loki. And when? There's 13 more? This is wild.
Guacamole.
Okay, well, one of them is What If. Hawkeye is late 2021 is when Hawkeye is coming. So I don't know. Maybe we do What If, I guess. Okay. I don't know.
Sure. I don't know what this is at all. That's how uninformed I am.
It's animated, but it's alternate timeline, like multiversey. So like what if some, I don't know, in the big poster there's like Peggy in like uniform like Cap, but actually like British, right? So there's like, yeah, I don't know. What if something happened? Yeah, there's a trailer. I have not actually seen it,
Okay.
but
I'll check
there
that.
is a trailer for it.
I am down to watch What If. It seems like people are excited about it. So yeah, let's
We'll
What
do
If?
it.
Yep.
We'll see you in August then, I guess. See you in a month.
Yeah, we will have a podcast for Black Widow at some
Yes.
point. And then I think that's it.
That's it. All right. Well,
Alrighty. Thanks
thanks
guys for hanging
everybody.
out.
Bye. Bye.